Welcome to another deep dive. You know, we love getting into the details, and today we're tackling something really cool. Success with 1% effort.
I'd love that title.
It really is catchy. So, based on what we've been reading and researching, the basic idea is that tiny habits, especially those related to learning, like learning English as a second language, can add up to huge results if you stick with them long enough.
Like compound interest almost. Small, consistent gains over time.
Exactly. And that's exactly what we're going to unpack today. How does this 1% effort idea actually play out in real life, especially when it comes to improving your English? We want to give you some real takeaways that you can actually use. Ever notice how two people can start out in a similar place, like maybe they went to the same school, even had kind of comparable family backgrounds, but then fast forward a few years and one of them's just soaring, right, doing awesome stuff, while the other one, well, they haven't really moved forward much. It makes you think, right, what's the difference maker there?
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's a pretty common thing to see, and you're right. It's rarely about some lucky break or anything. I really believe what truly sets people apart is their approach to learning. Not those big, intense efforts, but the small, consistent steps they take day after day.
Exactly. It's those tiny habits that by themselves don't feel like much, but added up over time really make a difference. And that's what we're diving deep into today. This idea of what we're calling it success with 1% effort. Sounds kind of catchy, doesn't it? But it's really about how those small learning habits, the ones that almost feel effortless, can lead to big results, especially when we're talking about learning English.
It's surprising how powerful it can be. Many English learners, especially those around that B2 level, might be feeling a bit stuck, like they're working hard but not seeing those big jumps in their English anymore. Or maybe they think that to really improve now they got to make these massive changes to their study routine. But that can be super overwhelming.
Yeah, that feeling of hitting a plateau, it can be so frustrating. You're putting in the work, but the progress feels slow. And that's exactly where this 1% effort concept comes in. It's not about suddenly cramming in hours and hours of extra study every day. That could quickly lead to burnout. It's more about finding those tiny, manageable things you can do consistently and, most importantly, actually sticking to them. It's about unlocking that next level in your English, but through small actions that build up over time.
Exactly. It's about those small wins that snowball into something much bigger. So, ready to break down success with 1% effort and how it applies to your English learning? Where do we even start with this? I think for me, it all begins with your mindset, like how you think about learning itself that kind of sets the stage for everything else.
Absolutely. It's a total shift in how we view learning. It's not just something that's confined to a classroom with textbooks and exams. It's an ongoing process, a part of life, really, especially with the English language. It's always evolving, right?
Totally. Think about it. New slang pops up all the time. The way we communicate online, everything changes so fast. If learning just stopped the day you finished a course, you'd be missing out on so much. The language itself is alive, constantly changing.
That's a fantastic point. It's not about reaching some imaginary finish line with your English. It's a journey. And a big part of that journey is embracing what's called a growth mindset. I'm sure some of you listening have heard of this.
It's a game changer, honestly. The core idea is that you believe your abilities, including your English skills, aren't set in stone. You're not just born with a certain level and that's it. You can improve, you can get better at speaking, listening, reading, writing. It all comes down to your dedication and effort.
Right. So with a growth mindset, if you come across a tricky grammar rule, you don't think, oh, I'm terrible at this. Instead, this is challenging, but I can learn it. And putting in the effort isn't something to be ashamed of. It's how you grow.
Exactly. A person with a fixed mindset might say, I'm just not good at speaking English. But with a growth mindset, it becomes, I'm not good at speaking English yet. That little word yet, it completely changes things. It opens up possibilities.
It totally does. And the opposite, that fixed mindset, well, that can really hold you back. If you believe your ability in English is fixed, you might avoid challenges because you're scared of failing or looking silly.
And that fear, that can be crippling for English learners. You might believe you can't improve your pronunciation, so you don't even bother practicing. A growth mindset, though, it pushes you to keep learning, to keep stretching yourself.
And another part of this mindset, something I think is incredibly important for English learners, is simply staying curious.
Oh, I love that. That innate desire to learn more, to understand why certain words are used, those subtle nuances. It's like keeping that childlike curiosity alive.
Right. Sometimes as adults, we feel like we should have all the answers already. And asking basic questions about English can feel a little embarrassing. But that curiosity, that's what leads you to discover new words, understand those tricky idioms, and get a deeper understanding of the language.
Absolutely. Think about it. You hear a new word or a phrase you've never heard before. That spark of curiosity makes you look it up, figure out how it's used. You might even try using it yourself. That act of learning, it sticks so much better than just passively hearing something.
Totally. And, this ties into another big thing, being okay with making mistakes. Whether you're speaking or writing in English, mistakes happen.
It's a huge hurdle for so many learners. That fear of saying the wrong thing, of making a mistake and sounding silly, it can stop you from actually using the language you're working so hard to learn.
Oh, I've been there. When I was learning new languages, I felt that so strongly. But you got to remember, making mistakes isn't a failure. It's part of the process. It's how you learn what works and what doesn't.
Absolutely. Every time you make a mistake and someone corrects you or you look it up and figure out the right way, you're actually learning. You're solidifying that knowledge.
Yeah.
Mistakes, they're feedback. They're showing you where you need to focus, where you can improve. And honestly, if you're not making any mistakes, you're probably not taking enough risks, not pushing yourself enough to become fluent. So we've covered the mindset, having that growth-oriented attitude, staying curious, and being okay with making mistakes. Now, let's get practical. What are some of those small but powerful habits we can build to improve our English? The first one that always comes to mind for me is reading.
You're spot on. Reading, it's such a fundamental habit for English learners. It exposes you to new vocabulary in a natural context. You pick up grammar intuitively. It boosts your comprehension skills. It's like immersive learning without even leaving your couch.
And the best part is, it doesn't have to be some incredibly difficult academic text. You don't have to jump into Shakespeare or anything.
No, absolutely not. Start with something that's at your level, something that interests you, even just 15, 20 minutes a day, or maybe set a goal like, I'm going to read 3 pages every day. It's small, it's manageable, but that consistency really pays off. Think of all the new words and expressions you'll come across.
Exactly. And it's not just about sticking to nonfiction, like news articles or blogs. Reading fiction, novels, short stories, that can be incredibly beneficial for English learners too.
It definitely is. Nonfiction is great for building vocabulary around specific topics, but fiction, that's where you see how English is used in everyday life. The nuances, the expressions, it gives you a real feel for the language. Plus, stories are engaging, makes the learning process more enjoyable.
A good mix of both is what you want for a well-rounded English journey. Okay, but how do we make this reading habit stick? Starting is easy, but staying consistent, that's the hard part, right?
It can be, definitely. That's where this 1% effort mindset really comes in. Instead of saying, okay, I'm going to read for an hour every day, which can sound overwhelming, how about starting super small? Like, I'm going to read just 1 page today in English. Sounds so easy, you can't really say no, right?
Love it. Lowering the barrier to entry, making it super achievable. And hey, once you've read that 1 page, who knows? You might just keep going.
Exactly. It's about building momentum. Another good tip is to pick a specific time and place for your reading. Maybe it's with your morning coffee or before you go to bed. Making it a routine makes it automatic. It's no longer this big decision you have to make.
Oh, and tracking your progress. That can be super motivating too. Seeing those days stack up where you've hit your reading goal, it's visual proof of your consistency.
It is. You can just use a simple calendar or one of those habit tracking apps, lots of them out there. Seeing that chain of successful days grow, it pushes you to keep going. And hey, maybe even reward yourself when you hit milestones, like a week of consistent reading.
Makes perfect sense. It's all about building those small, manageable routines. Okay, another crucial thing for learning anything, but especially English, is focus. And that's hard to come by these days.
Focus is like a superpower these days, right? Especially when you're trying to learn a new language.
It really is. We're bombarded with notifications, emails, social media updates. It's a constant battle to just sit down and concentrate on your English study.
And if you're trying to learn new words or figure out a tricky grammar rule, you really need to be able to focus. Trying to multitask might feel productive, but it actually makes things worse. It divides your attention, you're not really doing anything well.
Absolutely. You're just switching back and forth between tasks, and your brain doesn't fully absorb any of it. All those distractions, they just make it harder to make real progress with your English.
Yeah, so creating a dedicated time and space for your English learning, a place where you can minimize those distractions as much as possible, that's key. Maybe that means putting your phone on silent, letting people know not to interrupt you, finding a quiet spot, whatever it takes.
Building that little bubble of concentration, and honestly, even if it's just for short bursts, that focus time is going to be so much more effective than trying to study for hours while being constantly interrupted.
Totally agree. Even 15, 20 minutes of focused English learning can make a big difference. It's about quality over quantity, and minimizing those distractions is key.
Okay, we've got the right mindset. We're building good habits like reading. We're working on our focus. But what about those days when motivation is just gone? You just don't feel like studying English at all. That's where self-discipline has to take over, right?
You got it. Motivation is fantastic, but it's fleeting, you know? Some days you have it, some days you don't. Self-discipline, that's what keeps you going, even when motivation decides to take a break.
Yeah, you can't just rely on feeling like it to make consistent progress with your English.
Nope. Self-discipline, it's like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. Every time you choose to do a little bit of English practice, even when you'd rather be doing something else, you're making that discipline muscle stronger.
So it's about making that commitment to yourself and sticking to it,
Yeah.
even when it feels a little bit tough.
Exactly. And thinking small helps here too. It's easier to be disciplined about reviewing 5 vocabulary words than forcing yourself through a long study session when you just don't have the energy. It's about maintaining that consistency, even in tiny increments.
It really seems like that's the key, right? Consistency, driven by self-discipline, that's what leads to real long-term success in language learning.
Couldn't agree more. It's not about these huge dramatic efforts. It's about showing up consistently, even when it's just for a little bit, and doing the work.
So making your English practice a non-negotiable part of your day, scheduling it in like an important appointment.
That's it. And maybe having a rule, something like, I'm going to do at least 5 minutes of English practice every single day, no matter what. A small commitment like that, it's so much easier to stick to than a vague goal like, study more.
Love that, the no matter what rule. Takes the pressure off, but ensures you're doing something every day. Okay, let's talk about making your English learning even more effective. How can you maximize that 1% effort? What are some strategies to get the most out of your time?
One really important thing is to focus on leverage. Instead of just studying everything equally, think about where you can get the biggest bang for your buck, so to speak. For example, mastering the most frequently used English words. That's going to have a much bigger impact on your overall understanding and speaking ability than learning obscure vocabulary that you might never use.
Right, it's about being strategic with
Yeah.
your learning, making sure you're spending your time on the things that will move the needle the most.
Exactly. And the other thing to remember is that all your efforts should be aligned with your long-term goals for English. What are you trying to achieve? Do you want to be fluent for work? Travel and talk to people confidently. Whatever it is, keeping those goals in mind will help you prioritize what you focus on.
So instead of just picking the easiest or most comfortable thing to study, you're intentionally choosing to work on the areas that will help you reach your goals, whatever those might be.
Precisely. And another important factor is building confidence in your English. And that confidence, it comes from getting better at it, seeing the results of your efforts. It's a positive cycle. The more you improve your speaking, your listening, reading, and writing, the more confident you'll feel.
It's important to remember confidence isn't about being perfect. It's about being willing to use the English you have, even if you make mistakes, and trusting in your ability to learn and grow.
I agree. And don't fall into the trap of comparing yourself to others, especially those who are much more advanced. Focus on your own progress. Celebrate those small victories. That's how you build genuine confidence.
Okay, we're being strategic, focusing on our goals, building confidence. Now, how do we make sure we're actually using the English we're learning? Because studying in isolation, that's not going to get you fluent, is it?
Nope, not at all. Learning English without actively using it is like reading a book about swimming and expecting to be able to swim. You need to put it into practice, apply it in real-world situations.
It's that learning loop trap. You just keep consuming information but never actually use it. It's easy to get stuck there.
It is. So you have to make a conscious effort to actually use your English. Find a language partner to practice with, write emails or messages in English. Even just thinking in English can help.
So finding ways to actively engage with the language, not just passively study it. Even small things like labeling things around your house in English or changing the language settings on your phone. Just creating those opportunities to interact with the language.
Exactly. And again, going back to that 1% effort principle, even if it's just committing to one short conversation in English per week or writing a short paragraph, it's about those small acts of execution that really make the knowledge stick.
Which leads us to another important point. Learning English, or really anything worthwhile, it's going to have its challenges, right? There are going to be setbacks. There are going to be times when you feel stuck. How do we push through that? How do we develop that mental toughness?
Mental toughness is crucial. It's about how you react to those difficult moments. It's not about never encountering challenges. It's about seeing those challenges as opportunities for growth.
So when you make a mistake or you hit a wall and just can't understand something, you don't give up. You figure out what went wrong, you learn from it.
Exactly. It's about being resilient, being able to bounce back from those moments of frustration or those periods where you feel like you're not making progress. It's about having that inner strength to keep going, even when it's hard.
And all of this, it ultimately leads to this idea of striving for mastery in English. It's not just about reaching a certain level and then stopping. It's about continuous improvement.
Right. Mastery is an ongoing journey. It's about wanting to get better and better, keep pushing yourself, keep refining your skills.
So never losing that curiosity.
Yeah.
Always being open to learning new things, finding new ways to improve, even when you think you're pretty good already.
It's that relentless pursuit of excellence.
Mm.
And that brings us full circle back to the power of that 1% rule applied to your English learning journey. Those small, consistent improvements, that's what really adds up.
So think about it. What's one small, manageable thing you can do to be 1% better at English today? Maybe learn one new word, practice your pronunciation for 5 minutes, anything. Just pick one thing.
It might not feel like much in the moment, but remember, those gains compound. You end up making significant progress without feeling overwhelmed. And just imagine, if you commit to being 1% better every day, how much you could achieve in a year.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So for everyone listening, what's that one tiny step you can take today? That one small action that will set you on the path to English mastery. It doesn't have to be a huge thing, just something small, something you can stick with.
And really think about the possibilities. How could consistently applying that small effort transform your English? What doors could it open for you? What new conversations could you have?
It's the power of small, consistent actions. So take that first step today. It might just lead you somewhere incredible.
You got this.